So showing how this Zizek notion of Calvinism can invade Heidegger, if Heidegger is erroneously taken to be ontic, as is usually is. So like if Heidegger is taken to be just giving one more teaching, and there's a teaching, it has the word Heidegger in red letters, and then it's just like the Kantian teaching, it's just like the Plato's teaching, it's a specific teaching, and it's supposed to be eternally to be the case. Um, so, but rather Heidegger has to use something in order to pose this Wiederholen, or repeat of the being question. This is clear. I think Lawrence Hemming is awake to this to some extent. But I think most of the people that work on Heidegger don't understand this, and don't understand that Heidegger was asking the being question rather than propounding yet another philosophy. So Zizek says Calvinism, to him, it's like if we would say Kafka rather than being taught by Goethe, it's the other way around. And now we have to see Goethe in the eyes of Kafka, because Kafka was more powerful. He won out. He's the one in power now, not Goethe. And therefore we have to read Goethe through. We could almost say Goethe is sort of this youthful version, and Kafka is the more mature version of the same thing, if we were to take it that way. But then it's always, there's this possibility, and so why is that Calvinistic? It's sort of the notion, according to Zizek, he thinks that the determination in Calvinism, that you turned out to be very wealthy, therefore it was fated that you were to be very wealthy, and your past is to be understood as a Horatio Alger's story. But what I want to emphasize is not this notion of retroactively it appeared to be always necessary, or whatever, however you want to. I mean, that's actually a totally different way to interpret it than Calvinism. But he tries to sort of superimpose those two things. But what I want to say is either of those has sort of the flavor of will to power. So something wins out of their rightness, and it recasts the past. So long as Goethe was winning, he was influencing the future, right? He was influencing. What's that book? The one that was the Duke of Hamburg, or however it's called. Von Kleist is influencing von Kleist. He was influencing other people. But now he's been retroactively redetermined by Kafka, because Kafka turned out to be greater. So, if we're stuck with that, then what Heidegger is calling the originary rather than the original, these originary forces which recast time in whatever direction time is supposed to be. Or we should remember how haphazard all this is. History is, for Hegel, what Aristotle called the automaton, or chance, the great automaton, as the great genus, which we would call chance. And then with specific, more common forms. But this automaton, or chance, according to Hegel, is now swapped out for history, and moreover it becomes, the essence of history turns out to be this automaton chance. And then Hegel says, but out of this what appears to be chance, there's a method in the madness, or a pattern. in the madness, as though on the open seas suddenly we would see a torchlight at a distance and realize there was another capital ship afloat. Only it was us in the future, having come to obtain the absolute moment of the state in the calm waters of Solon, or Solon, Plato's supposed reputative distant relative. So if we would take the whole teaching as it appears in, quote unquote, appears in this one most mercenary book of Heidegger's, Being in Time, which he was compelled to write to get his credentials, to be credentialed in the highest regard, and then to be go on to be the most vaunted entity for Das Man. Yeah, he had to do this, come to a mercenary understanding with the university and also with the state of Prussia, because Prussia had supervisory power over his writing. So there is in Heidegger, let's say, a persecution in the art of writing issue. Okay. But we don't really need all this evidence. We could make a very strong forensic case on that basis, but we don't really need all that evidence. So we just understand the situation, which is, as I was saying, if something like will to power would creep up on Heidegger's teaching, and Heidegger is well aware that it could, then it would just be one more of those 1,001 historical teachings within the problem of presentism, as it's most commonly understood today. Some selection has to be made of the material. Some criteria has to be given in terms of whether feeling, sensation, whether cognitive dignity, whether whether some kind of intuitional sense is to be preferred as the measure of the worth of this given keeping up the old relatives, as it were, and where each old relative is like a university department, because like, why should we still fund people who study Homer? Maybe that's just like studying the Battle of Agincourt. We only fund it because somehow it's not that expensive, and it still seems to be prestigious, but maybe we should just let some of the old relatives go, right? It's this kind of thing. And then you got the questions about whether languages are to be taught and things like that. But some selection is made. The preference goes towards, probably towards physics, towards fundamental physics, now towards AI, perhaps. And Heidegger's totally aware of this. So why is Heidegger going to just propound one more teaching which aims at going to the pragmata, the auton pragmata or whatever, to look directly at the existence of the Suhanden or whatever, the verb form of the thing. So at the beginning of Sein und Zeit, he says, no, we're going to repeat this being question. That's what we're doing. We're asking the being question. All the time we have being, we're questioning being. But this means there must be some way for Heidegger to try to avoid being condemned on the basis that you have merely created the strongest teaching. You're not actually the promise of the hidden king, of the prophecy or revelation of the Platon, of Aristotle, of all the great thinkers, but rather, as it so turns out, you're just like this, you're a Goethe who could be recast as the lower stage of a Kafka, something like that. Yeah, so I mean, I think this is also when we talk about the Nietzsche hat mich kaputt gemacht comment that Heidegger made to his son, and his son was unable to interpret. We might, yeah, put that into the sort of face up to that in that context as well.